Hey guys, what's going on? This is Joshua with ThinkLiberty.co, and today we're joined by Ryan Ramsey. Ryan Ramsey is the founder of the Jacksonville Open Carry and the Florida Liberty Project. He's the chairman of the Bradford County Libertarian Party and the Region 4 representative for the Florida State Party. How you doing this evening, Ryan?
Man, I'm great.
Good.
Had a little on here, but they blocked me 5 minutes before your broadcast, so I had to use another account to get on here. So apparently they don't want us to chat.
Yeah,
that's fine.
They're trying to shut us down, man. It's all right. I understand.
It happens.
Hey, let's start with what brought you to the Liberty Party and how long you've been working with the Liberty Party and the movement as a whole.
Well, I started in about 2009. I started meeting some guys that were gun rights activists. I've been a big gun. I was a gunner's mate in the Navy. Grew up shooting and hunting, and so we decided we wanted to do something. And about 5 of us figured out there was a loophole in the Florida law that allows you to open carry if you're fishing, hunting, camping, or going to or from one of these activities. So we decided we would get some friends together and we would take some fishing up here downtown and open carry. And then people would be like, what the hell are you doing? And then we could hand them literature and all that. And so by 2010, we had Florida Carry was founded. And I went to the Senate the first time in 2011. I was actually like, a guy was sick and they called me. They're like, hey, man, can you go to Tallahassee? Because we need somebody at this hearing. And this dude's got like the flu and shit. So I was like, all right, sure. And then I went up there and was like, man, you were great. You got it. So then I got stuck going. So be careful what you volunteer yourself for. But I enjoyed it. We pushed the bill through, and the Republicans killed it they amended the bill because we had the votes. So they amended it to have accidental exposure become not a crime, right? So we said, well, that's like so subjective, like to law enforcement trying to be like, he has to judge in the field if it's an accident or not. I mean, that's really not. So of course there's all these YouTube videos of like cops like sticking guns in people's ears and cussing them for dead. And so we've been fighting back. But it's funny because every year the Republicans would introduce the bill, and every year a Republican would kill it from like South Florida or these like New York immigrants from right. to the party. So I was like, man. So I started broadening. That whole thing became like a huge. Florida Carry is one of the most successful grassroots gun rights groups in the country ever. We got, I think it's about 40,000 people. There's about 10,000 people that pay dues every year. Wow. And, so we had if you go to their website at Florida Carry Inc., and there's a tab that says accomplishments. It'll tell you all the lawsuits we've won and all the legislation. But I started backing away from there because of a lot of political differences. There's a lot of war hawkishness and various, things that I didn't really believe in going on. So I just kind of quietly and amicably moved on, and we founded the Liberty Project based on a body camera bill and a couple other pieces of legislation. I don't know if you know who Jason Westcott is down there in Tampa that got killed by the police. You ever heard that story?
I have, yeah. Long time ago.
Yeah. So Jason Westcott was by the cops, and I say murdered because I know a lot of information about it. That's not there's a lawsuit right now, so I'll keep quiet about that. But we saw Patty Silliman, who is Jason's mother, in the news, and she was down there at Tampa City Hall, and she's like fighting for body cameras. And we're like, we have a body camera bill. I got to get a hold of this lady. So we got a hold of her, and we started going around and meeting with legislators. Couldn't get any Republicans or Democrats. Were like, oh, that's anti-police. I'm like, accountability is anti-police. That's been one of my big themes. Is accountability and all that. Well, anyhow, so I couldn't get a Republican or a Democrat to introduce the bill. So I was like, well, I need to find the Libertarians. So I found out there was no Libertarians in the Florida legislature. And then I said, well, shit, we need to get some people elected. And then I said, well, let me find my local party. And there wasn't a local party. So I started attending meetings in Duval, which was where Brandy was living at the time. This was before she moved in. This was 2014. Started going to meetings. And James Chipman was the chair up there, and he's an American Indian dude. His dad actually has like the record for the most time in solitary confinement, like 16 years in Minnesota, I believe was the state. But we hit it off because we had this like cross-cultural exchange based on like, I gave him like a book on Vikings and he gave me a book on Crazy Horse. And we found out there's like warrior culture stuff, between Vikings and American Indians. Stuff was like real similar. So I was like, wow, these guys are cool, So I founded the first affiliate in my region. And then now I'm the region chair, and I just got reelected unanimously. And I re-established us at the University of Florida, and I've got a couple of affiliates about to launch. So I'm going to step down and give my Alachua chair the seat, because basically he has been doing the work and is doing a good job. So I'll hand him hopefully 4 or 5 at least affiliates and go on from there. But that's basically how the chart went. It started with gun rights, and then I realized we just need a third voice.
Right. All right, that's great. I also read that you had family who were abolitionists, and I'd love to hear some more about that. I think that's a really interesting story. It sounds like liberty's been in your blood for quite a while.
Well, yeah. William Ramsey signed the Declaration of Arbro, which is Arbros rather. It was in 1320, and it was the first declaration by mankind of popular sovereignty, which is the right to choose who rules you, if anyone. And we all know wars, Braveheart, all that stuff. His son was Alexander Ramsey, and he actually freed Scotland in 1342. So this took him quite a while to get the job done, and that's who my son that'll be born in August is named after, is Alexander Ramsey. But James Ramsey was in the 1700s. He went to the West Indies, and he was appalled by the conditions of the slavery in the West Indies. So he came back and started speaking out against slavery in Scotland. And he's the first abolitionist of Scotland, and man, they pretty much ruined his life, and he never backed down, and to the day he died. And but yeah, he was one of the first. He was the first abolitionist that I know of in Scotland.
Nice. So I read some of your articles and a little bit of the literature that you've put together. It seems you were a pretty big fan of Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington. Can you tell me a little bit about what interests you with those guys?
Well, a lot of people kind of the history of the civil rights movement, and at the turn of the century, you had Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey, and basically Booker was founded the Tuskegee Institute, and they were basically doing an educational program, and they would educate people and then send them back to their communities to carry that education on. So Garvey, he starts building a whole thing of trade. He gets a shipping line to Liberia, which is it was like a colony, I guess, and they made a country, and you could repatriate if you were a former slave, and this, that, and the other. So he started bringing in spices, goods from Africa, and all that. And these guys were basically the vehement opposition. I couldn't say right now the quotes that Marcus Garvey had to say about W.E.B. Du Bois, but he was the guy that founded the NAACP. Now, the NAACP was founded by a bunch of white, basically neo-Marxists, and literally they did not have a black. So they had Du Bois was the public face of them, and the ideas were completely opposed. In fact, Garvey actually said that we need to stay out of the communism and stay away from Marxism, because that's just one group of white dudes trying to get over on another group of white dudes, and they'll use us as a pawn, and then we'll still get the short end of the stick in the end, which was pretty prophetic when you look at how it all fell out. But they were seriously, it was like they really hated each other. I mean, go Google the conflict between Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, and you will see some pretty heavy language going on there. And those guys, their principle of Booker and Garvey was to they're like, if people are racist, just make a valuable good or service, and then what can they say? And right. and Du Bois was like, no, we need to have the government provide redress by confiscating money from one group and giving it to another. And, those guys were literally, they said, they're like, if you want 100 years of hate and division, go ahead and do that. So everything was going along. In fact, to this day, nobody's ever had a larger black movement than Marcus Garvey did. And I think I had sectors, man, across the United States. And he ended up going to he basically did, he pulled a Augustus and Will Coley, and he went and met with his enemy and had a talk. And he goes to the Ku Klux Klan, back, remember in the 1920s, the Klan had 1 million people march on Washington, right? They were a big force. So he came out of there and he goes, man, these guys are better friends to the black man than any white liberal. and so about a few months later, they trumped up this charge on him. And it was, he printed a pamphlet for his shipping line, and he was going to buy a ship. So he had a picture of the ship on the pamphlet, and the deal fell through. So he bought another ship, which was pretty much the same. So they said that was a trademark, or that it was a false advertising, and they put him in federal prison for 3 years, and then they commuted his sentence and deported him. And Garvey and Booker T. Washington had a heart attack, and so that just left the NAACP and Du Bois co-opt the civil rights movement for Marxism, and that's basically all we've had since.
Gotcha.
Until like Malcolm X and those guys,
right?
Those guys were also,
they were a pretty big movement as well.
Yeah.
So would you could consider yourself a minarchist or a classical liberal?
Yeah, I think I'm a straight down the middle classical liberal minarchist. I'm not an anarchist. There's a funny article on MadAmericanNetwork.com that Dave wrote, and he has his own style to say the least. But he's like, I'll take I'll drink your beer and take your food and put babies in your wife, or whatever. And he's basically, the idea of having a country and having some minimalist deal to, provide a protection against defense is important. I've written about the American Indian had plenty of numerical strength, but they were separate tribes with no unifying body. They were picked off one by basically they're on reservations. Their culture was destroyed, their land was taken, and if you don't want that to happen to America, then that's we got to think about it. I like to use the term which Justin Garcia from the Pressure Project taught me is circles of loyalty. Like you've got your family, then you've got your community, you got your state, and then you got your country. So it's like we might disagree on all kinds of stuff, but if someone invades America, we're going to be standing there with rifles fighting them, right? Together. Right. That's a larger circle of loyalty. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions in the liberty movement is what nationalism or the idea of having a country. I want America. America is a thing. I mean, you can go to any place in the world. They know America's a thing. They can spot an American on vacation from anywhere. You know what I mean? There's a culture, there's a thing. And that's not a bad thing. And it's something worthy of preserving, in my opinion.
And so how would you feel? Let's say we get to this night watchman state style utopia, and then we start haggling about getting anarchy. I mean, is that something that you would, in your heart of hearts, would you still argue about that? Or would you,
Brother, listen, I'm not going to be alive then. My political goals are basically very simple. Is right now, my initial goal is to restore the Bill of Rights. Right now, this 10th Amendment is getting sodomized and no lube. The Second Amendment's under constant attack. The First Amendment's under attack all the time. There's so many problems going on. The military industrial complex is a big thing. I founded the Libertarian Veterans Caucus. I don't know if you know that, but I'm not an officer. I have too many other duties. But I did found it, and with the express purpose of founding it was because the typical anti-war movement has this really bad stigma left over from Vietnam when they were spitting on soldiers and stuff. So everybody hears anti-war and they think beatnik, douchebag in a Che Guevara T-shirt or something, So we were and down here, I live in Florida, but I live in North Florida, and it's the Bible Belt, man. It's the South, and if you go down here and you're a veteran, they'll listen to you, And the idea was to bring veterans. They have these bumper stickers that are everywhere down here, and they're like, if you're not for the troop, if you don't stand behind the troops, get in front of them. And all this shit. So, right. It's a means of injecting the anti-interventional message into the body politic with veterans, where the people will be inclined to listen to them instead of some annoying fucking lefty kid. Right. So, right. That's the basic purpose of that.
And so you support a non-interventionist government. So
dude, yeah, I want an end to all foreign military and economic aid. I want to bring all the troops home. Thomas Jefferson had it right. When Thomas Jefferson had a problem with the Muslims, the Barbary pirates over there, he went over there and he freaking stirred up a bunch of shit and killed, the dudes that were causing the problem and made sure that they didn't screw with the American flag. And then he came home. Gotcha, it was that simple. That was in Libya too. And Libya is I don't know why that whole deal is funny. Reagan did that. He didn't go and invade Libya. He blew up Gaddafi's house, a family house. You know what I mean? And they were innocent victims, but they were family of his. And it was holy crap, they blew up my uncle, And then the dude turns in all his weapons of mass destruction and all this stuff. So there's a lot of merit to that. I'm not opposed to using force in the defense of the people of America. I'm just opposed to doing it without going through the Constitution, and I'm opposed to the bulk of this military operations that are going on in the world, which are designed to serve other interests.
Right. Yeah, I also know you're a big proponent of ending the drug war, which I also support. So can you tell me a little bit about what kind of steps you've taken towards that goal?
Well, yeah. My main thing, there's only so many hours in the day. I've chose the Second Amendment for a reason, because it's like that's the right that protects all the others. Like as long as you're armed, then it's really hard to really like put you under a tyranny when everybody's got an AR-15. When Obama was first elected, there was a lot of talk about gun control, and when he got elected in November, between then and his inauguration in January, it was like 1 million AR-15s were sold, which is like as many people in the army. Right. That's a big message. He didn't really do a whole lot trying to ban any guns. This is stuff at the state levels, but it just goes to show you that, saber rattling, that's another thing of this whole, like the non-aggression principle. I believe in non-initiation of force, but at the same time, to rattle sabers and to let everybody know there's a line and don't cross it is actually a peaceful. That's like promoting, an army kind of deal. Like I want to keep the Navy and the Air Force. Like we have to protect our shipping. There's still pirates. You can go on YouTube. I saw a cool shootout from between a merchant ship and some pirates the other day on YouTube. I mean, it's
it happens. It definitely happens. So, where do you see the LP kind of headed currently, as opposed to where you would like to see it headed?
Oh, the LP is going to go. I mean, the LP is going the direction ultimately I think that I wanted. My issues with the party is basically education. There's not a lot of political science in the Libertarian Party, bro. All right. A lot of the things that are discussed at the LNC are things that would be better discussed at the bar over a couple beers. Like you and I can sit here and debate. You're an anarcho-capitalist. We can have a great time talking about this stuff, but the idea is, how do you get it done? And okay, you have the genesis of the ideology. You got your like Ayn Rands and Rothbards and like all these people, started out in like 50s, 60s. The party's established in the 70s. Now we're at the point where we actually have ballot access pretty much everywhere. We're actually 30% of the population agrees with us on an issues-based test. So why do we only have 3.6% in a presidential election?
Right.
I'll tell you why. Because we are not reaching the people of this country with a message that they can palatable. So you brought up the drug war. I don't go around and wave signs and try to tell everybody how great pot is. If they're a conservative Christian going to church, they're already inoculated against that. You know what I mean? It's like when you criticize Israel's foreign policies and the things that they do to the Palestinians and their apartheid and stuff. Like it just comes out across as anti-Semitism. So it's a bad scene, right? So I just say I'm against all foreign military and economic aid. I don't single out Israel. I'll single out, you know what I mean? Same thing with the drug war. I tell people, don't go out there and try to convince everybody drugs are great and act like you're pro-drug. Tell them that decriminalization reduces drug use by about half, like in Portugal. So this is the anti-drug position, and people that are on drugs need fucking treatment, dude, not a jail cell. Yeah, so and now this is where they're screwing up, where the state is vulnerable, is because this Christian idea in the Bible Belt of redemption. There's so many people now that have somebody in their church and that is a good dude that got busted for some pills or some weed, and now he's still can't vote or can't get a job at the utility company. So it's like, hey man, like, is that guy really a bad guy? He's not a bad guy, So let's just get rid of this criminal element. I mean, people on drug addicts just need a hug, dude. Like, you know what I mean? For the most part, they're miserable, so they do drugs to like hide the misery, whatever hole it was, where it was an abusive childhood or bad marriage or whatever kind of shit sends people off the rails. So, I say change the messaging around and go, man, drugs are bad. Let's reduce their use by half, because the drug war hasn't reduced it by any. We spent $1 trillion. You guys want, and use the marketing. Like, you guys are complaining about $1 trillion for Obamacare. Well, we spent that much on the drug war, and drugs are far more pure and way cheaper. I mean, when you consider inflation. So it's just, my biggest deal in the Libertarian Party is the messaging and the way that we market our ideas, and trying to inject political science and populism into this, where we, which Rothbard was writing a lot about libertarian populism before he died. and he was, it's really words, we need to win elections to see any of our deals come to fruition. We're just on we're on like this federal spending and debt spending and the inflation and the printing of money is certain doom. It's like the year that we're like fucked moves up every year.
Right. Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're screwed. So let's talk about how to fix it instead of talk about, you're a Rothbardian neo whatever, and I'm an anarcho this and right. Fuck you.
We're arguing semantics. One of our founders, she has a really good saying that she says about that, and I think I talked to you about it earlier. It's like the journey's 3,000 miles, and we're arguing about the last 3 exits, right? So,
well, exactly, and arguing about which one we're going to go to first. We talked about immigration. For some reason, people think I'm like some kind of immigration hawk, but like my deal is, if the average cost of an illegal immigrant is $14,000 per in social spending. Why don't we get rid of the socialist welfare state, get rid of the drug war and military-industrial complex, and then anyone that comes here, and nobody has a problem. Then you can call people racist, because then they really have to be pretty much a racist, because the person's going to come here and work and do whatever, But to call, I think it's a really bad look for us to go there and to join that kind of Democrat thing that they do, where they try to insinuate that, because people do not care about that. I work in the construction industry, man. There's plenty of illegal labor going on and all that. And these guys, even those redneckest ones, have black guys that work for them, and we all get along just fine. And there is no political correctness in the blue collar industries. I can tell you that right now.
There's not. I also work in the same industry.
Right. We just ball bust each other about being Mexicans or whatever, it's all fun. But, that's the whole thing, is like, you can't tell these people that they're obligated to pay like all this money. And it is an enormous amount of money. So we could tell the Latino community, hey guys, why don't you join with us? Up reduce the restrictions on immigration. The Libertarian platform says reasonable immigration controls to protect security and disease control and stuff like that. Now, is taxation theft?
Yes.
I think if taxation's theft, then why are we saying no, but it's okay for them to come here and impose $14,000 per individual of taxation on the American populace?
I'm not going to lie. I voted for taxation and stuff to be the theme for the LNC next year. So,
oh God, well that's better than some of the other ones. Don't get me started on that one. We'll go off on a tangent.
That's all right, man. We want to hear your tangents. That's why we're here.
So that basically my thing is this: like our part, like the LPF is free to join. You just go on the website, click on it. We have like just under 4,000 members. Okay. I built. We started in '87. I built a group that's like 10,000 paying dues every year since 2010. Like I know what I'm doing. I don't want to listen to a bunch of old people that were sitting around at a Perkins restaurant, while the country fell apart. I just, no offense, but like it's time to start looking at political science. It's time to look at, and people try to make us sing like, well, we have to compromise our principles. No, you don't. You just have to look at what principles you have are marketable, and you have to exploit the current conditions and go ahead and focus your message and make that your point. And where, like in Florida, like I told you how we were talking earlier, open carry bill. I've been out there every year since 2011. Republicans introduce it every year, and a Republican kills it every year. So our executive committee for the LPF did unanimously open carry, and so I use that. I talk to them when I'm at the gun range. I go, man, you want to be in a pro-gun party, that's something that it's really hard for them to argue with. It's not negative. I'm keeping it within the platform, within the principle. I'm just finding a marketable solution, like with the drug war thing. I'm saying, not telling everybody to get high. I'm saying, hey guys, let's reduce drug use and save $1 trillion. It's
kind of that pragmatic approach.
It's the only approach. We're a political party. Right. We're not a philosophy club. If we were a book club, that shit would be fine. But like, we're a political party. Our job is to elect candidates and to be the doing part of our ideology. So I'll give you the example. My famous example on immigration is in the 1980s. we had these guys, and they were being like irresponsible, and they were out there like legalize heroin and trying to make these snarky arguments, too libertarian for you. When Nancy Reagan's got the lemmings chanting, just say no. Okay? It's just bad tactics, dude. It's just bad tactics. Right? So now everybody's like, oh, those guys are just for pot and gays for like 20 years. Now we finally have like another chance because nobody cares about pot or gays no more. Right. So so now here's our chance. So what are we going to do when knuckleheads got them all chanting build a wall? They're going to start yelling about open borders. Right. Shut up. Let's like I also like to look at things like this, right? What is the biggest threat of blood and treasure? Okay? While I'm sure it sucks to have, to wait to immigrate, people get blown up all over the world. There's 500,000 people in prison cells, and you're paying for that too, for possession of flowers or powders, man. Like, that is the immediate pressing thing, and coincidentally, it will also lead to your ability to affect that other thing. So anything beyond that, I just find disingenuous. I think that there is people in this party that actually do not want it to succeed, and I think that if you consider the fact we're against the global banking system, and we want to end the Fed and the IRS, and we want to end the global. I mean, look at Europe. Okay, Europe, like I think Germany has like 6 fighter jets. They send all their people to college for free because NATO pays for their defense, which is us.
Right.
Right. So if we would stop like subsidizing the defense of Europe and bring all our people home, forced to come to grips with, and we could free Europe from socialism without firing a shot.
Right.
I mean, you see what I mean? Like, it's just, you got to think about how to do it. And this is something that all political movements go through. This is not unique to us. If you look at the history of the Communist Party and the Communist, if you go to, it's the same thing. Like Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1858. At the turn of the century, you had a bunch of bickering factions. You had the Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks, Trotskyites. They even had one called the Radicals. Just like us, they're like, we're pure communists. Like the guy's like, well, no one's ever actually tried it totally, so you can't say it's a failure, right? So they actually literally had that. And Lenin was like the guy that basically said, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to promote democracy because that leads to socialism. Then we're going to promote socialism, and that'll lead to communism. And then they had the Bolshevik Revolution 17 years later. Okay, and I hate to use the example of the ideological enemy, but tactics. The Viet Cong guerrilla tactics work for us too. The special forces use them every day. You know what I mean? Like, tactics don't matter about ideology. There's a big difference. So what we do is the point when we become 3% to 30%.
Right. So what would you say the biggest threat to liberty currently that we face is?
Ultimately, I think the biggest threat to liberty is the fact that we don't have sound currency, and that we don't have control of our own political system, and we don't have an actual self-determining deal. The greatest threat to liberty on the earth is Marxism. That is the dominant collectivist ideology that is in existence today. Fascism and Nazism, contrary to popular belief, in a small group of really loud and annoying libertarians, is those philosophies were defeated in the 1940s. Okay, and there's an important thing which I find really ironic about that. People don't understand fascism at all. Fascism is a reactionary movement against communism. You get rid of communism, you don't have fascism. So if you're an anti-fascist, stop running around and burning shit in the streets, and just help us destroy communism. But the reality is that anti-communists that call themselves that. But the everywhere in the world, I mean, Venezuela. I have a show, Global Dissident Voices, on the Mad American Network, and I interview people from all over the world. I talked to a guy; he's like an anarcho-capitalist, 30 miles outside of Caracas, in Venezuela. Can you imagine that? Yeah, Victor, man, Victor's awesome. And then. The Cuban Libertarian Party, I don't know if you know about that saga, but Cuban Libertarian Party.
Paying attention to it for sure, definitely.
Yeah. They Mises had a Cuban wing, which was really cool, and I didn't even know that for a while. And they arrested a couple and put them in a gulag. So everybody started raising a stink. Myself, some guys from Nevada, and other state parties started sticking up for them, and the Nevada guys tried to get them, and it failed, and they were like, well, we don't want to interfere with another country's sovereignty. Like, it's a communist dictatorship like 90 miles from our shores. We can say that sucks. We can say let those guys out of jail for having a library. They founded the Benjamin Franklin Library, which is cool enough in and of itself, and they got arrested for it. So everybody raised a big shit fit, and I raked Commissar Sarwark and a few of them over the coals, and then they revisited the issue, unanimously passed it, and on the weekend of our convention, May 7th, they founded the Libertarian Party of Cuba. So, I believe in fighting against all that, because that's really everywhere. That's what's destroying everything. All the other stuff, your religion, your other beliefs are all kind of secondary. It's pretty much like you have to get rid of Marxism and socialism and restore the republic in lieu of democracy, which is mob rule, because democracy is the road to socialism,
And I notice you don't use the words cultural Marxism, which is a big one in the
Well, actually, I do use the words cultural Marxism, but I use them in context and explain it. People don't understand what that even is. Are you familiar with the Frankfurt Institute?
A little bit, yeah. Not. I haven't done
Frankfurt
a whole
School
study on it, but I know a little bit
Institute
about
for
it.
Social Research. All right. So we can pick up right there at 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. So they get their big proletarian USSR going, right? So Hungary and Germany have these short-lived communist revolutions, and they failed like less than, I think, 6 months in Hungary and like whatever. And that was what caused the rise of Hitler, which is why I'm telling you people how dangerous this Marxism is. Trump is not Hitler. But if you don't stop these people in the streets running around and doing this shit, and if we don't get these people out of the party and get these people out of any sort of legitimacy, you're going to get Hitler in the end, because people get sick of it and they look to a strong man to fix it. You know what I mean? And so who's the strong man against commies? It's the fascists. But anyhow, they Comintern, Communist International, founded put forth the edict that they needed to study why communism did not take root in the West. And the Frankfurt School Institute for Social Research was founded. And the rise of Hitler, they moved to Columbia University in America. And this institute basically forms all of the basis of modern psychology, sociology, marketing, advertising, political polling. All that was invented by this organization. Okay, the heads of all the three big networks, all from like the 50s through the 80s, are all from this institute. The three big marketing firms, including the ones that put Eisenhower, the first TV president, in office, graduates and associates of this institute. All three of the big pollsters, founded right out of there. What they did, they had a thing called Little Annie, and it was a resistor, like a rheostat, like a dial, and they would have people watch movies and watch things, and you would rate good or bad, and the studios would kind of have an idea of how they're. Well, they were able to, you'd watch it, and you'd dial it up when you liked it, and you'd dial it down when you didn't like it. And they basically figured out this whole psychology of how to manipulate humans' likes and dislikes, and figured out how to do all this stuff. And Theodor Adorno, he wrote a book called The Authoritarian Personality, which is a classic tome. All these guys, if you go start researching it, you're going to find that this is basically the engine of everything bad that's happened in this country. What they found was that the Western mind was different. For two reasons. The Orthodox Christianity in Russia is more collectivist in its nature, and they have a lot of pomp and circumstance. And this led to basically the West, has this personal relationship with Jesus and, all this. So there's a very individualist mindset already existing. We're not going to get the proletariats, we're all too busy making money and, living the American dream to want to unite with workers of the world and overthrow the bourgeoisie or whatever. So they're basically the way to destroy, the way to bring America and Western Europe under communism is you have to destroy the culture. You have to attack the churches. You have to attack the country itself, every display of patriotism or flags or anything. And you have to basically annihilate everything. The American family is a big thing. And that's what the Great Society and all that stuff was designed to do. I'll give you a statistic that'll blow your mind. 1968, 85% of black children were raised in a two-parent household. Right now, 25%. And that's due to the fact that they gave a cash reward to eject a contributing male from the household with the Great Society. So, mad at somebody for the plight of some of the things that are going on as far as the different races and classes. You really need to go right back to these philosophies because they're deliberately sabotaged the country to create hate and division.
Cool. Well, let's get down to the important questions here. Lately, there's been a lot of stuff being flung at you, and I know that you're equated quite frequently with like Augustus Invictus and that faction. And there's been words thrown around at you such as like white nationalist and fascist and all this stuff. So I just kind of wanted to let you clear the air about that and see what your thoughts are on those words.
Yeah, man. Well, okay. First of all, if you ever meet anybody yelling fascist, like I say, I mean, last time I looked, Italy's not fascist anymore. I don't, all that. I'm a classical liberal, dude. My thing with Augustus started, I was in the party for about a year and a half, and the guy we used to have as our chairman down here, his name was Adrian Wiley, and he was a conservative group down there in Ellis County, and I call them the Blue Bloods. They're like very like, they're like the kind of, they're like people that probably never met or hung out with very many people that aren't white, and they're very it's very important to them to try to signal that they're like not racist. Like it's like a guilt thing, in my opinion. I think it's like actually like go get back into psychology and sociology. But the guy comes out and he was upset because he was a conservative Christian, evangelical dude, and Augustus is a pagan. So he was like, oh, this guy with this weird religion. So the party rejected that because we're like, so what? Like, you have a freedom of religion. I mean, if we're libertarians can't get behind that, I don't know what we can get behind. So then he got a disgruntled, I don't know what they call them. I don't know. I know they're like priests in a church. I don't know what they call he's in his religion because it's different than mine. But the guy he had a falling out with that he used to attend the OTO temple or whatever. And the guy has like a big old butthurt deal. He's called the FBI on Augustus years before. So he goes to and passes it through an intermediary down there in Polk County and gives him the story about the goat sacrifice. And so they're like, well, we can't get him on the religion. So he sacrificed a goat and he's a Nazi, Now Augustus has 4 like very brown children, and the other reason he got that rap was he defended the American front. I'm actually working on repealing the law that they charged them with. There's a law in Florida called the Paramilitary Training Act. Give you a little background. The FBI did a 5-year investigation on these dudes. Could not find anything to arrest them for. So they had the state attorney of Florida charge them with violating the Paramilitary Training Act, which says if 3 people or more get together, I'm paraphrasing now, and do anything that could be used in a furtherance of a civil disobedience at some time in the future, they're guilty of violating this. So, like, if you and your redneck buddies are out there and your redneck buddy puts up an Obama towel like they were going around, or like, people are like, man, if the shit ever hits the fan, I'm fucking ready. They got their guns or whatever. So you saying that is like, oh, so you're saying if there's a civil disobedience in the future, you are going to put up an armed resistance. You've now violated the Paramilitary Training Act. You're going to prison for 5 years. So Augustus defended these dudes because, and he's been basically his entire law career was defending black and brown victims of the drug war. And if a lot of people don't know his intro into the Libertarian Party was he was a pharmacy tech while he was going to college in law school, and the DEA raided the place and planted methamphetamine on an innocent girl to make her testify against the owners, and they got deported. All right. And it was basically, they weren't doing anything wrong. They just were like, we want to reduce the number of pharmacies and doctors prescribing, opiates because now we invaded Afghanistan. So the heroin supply is back. So our masters want us to get rid of these fucking pills, and he was like, this is the most fucked up thing I've ever seen. And he basically declared war on the DEA. And that was what was the really sad part about the whole campaign was, that all got lost in the main campaign goal and reason he ran for Senate was to abolish the DEA. And which I thought was a worthy goal. And so anyhow, I didn't know him at this time. This was like, stuff going on like spring of 2015. So then they started saying somebody went and found like a college paper that he wrote about eugenics. Now, first of all, I took an ethics class, and I used to have to write papers like from opposing viewpoints. So well, I probably should have said that. Now they're probably trying to find them and try to, figure something I argued that I don't believe in now and, say some shit. But anyhow, when that came up in June 1st, 2015, he issued a fireside chat on eugenics and civil war, and he explained his whole rationale for why he flat out repudiated, eugenics and all that stuff. And then there was still something like that was kind of ambiguous in his campaign website. So this was even the funny part. Out and the vote failed, and then Wiley quit the party and took his toys and went home. And so I called him. I go, Augustus, all right, we kept you from getting kicked out of the party, but would you do me a favor and take that off your website, because I can see how people could read it wrong. I know what you mean. You've explained to me what you mean, but just admit that random people could probably take it wrong. And he did. He took it down. When I first, heard the controversy, was like, well, somebody give me his number. And I called him and had a very candid conversation. I was like, all right, that's acceptable answers to me. I can deal with that. But those American front dudes, he got them off of that, like, for the most part. A couple of them were like felons, and there was like a video of them holding a gun, which is a crime. So, which I don't believe should be a crime. Nobody should lose a right to defend themselves, unless you've actually committed like a violent crime. He had a pound of weed, so now he can't have a gun for the rest of his life. It's ridiculous. Anyhow, but he, like when you are like a lawyer defending some group, you have to always be like, well, they're shitbags, but everybody deserves a fair trial.
Right.
That old gag. So he wouldn't do that because he's like, I don't know, man. I mean, they like came and helped my biracial family move, and like they're like really nice to me, and like I think they're, I don't really care what kind of shit they're doing when they're running around in the woods. There's a federal agent testified on the stand in that trial that they had alarm cows and attacked geese. That's how far they tried to stretch to try to make this case. And then the whole thing about that, some of those guys realized the hard way what it was like to be a persecuted minority, and became libertarian. And so, there's a couple of them in the party, and they're definitely libertarian, trying to take over. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, really? Like, I'm going to like get everybody to start wearing an armband and like run around. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is absurd on its face. But yeah, so basically I guess I got like lumped in based on the fact that I was a part of his defense, and helped keep him getting kicked out. But that was just done on principle, that I felt they were persecuting him for his religious beliefs and personal beliefs, that don't have anything to do with libertarianism. I grew up in Southern California, and for part of that, there was, I was like in places where like, there's 800 people in the school and only 200 speak English. So they would keep my ass from being white. They would tell us we were white, and so I kind of fell in my younger years in the skinhead movement. But it was basically a self-defense thing. It was like, hey, cool, we like tattooed this shit on ourselves, and now we like have a bunch of dudes that we can go beat them up too after they jump us, and now that we look scary, like they don't fuck with us half as much, and so now I get like a black eye only once a month instead of twice a month. This is cool, or whatever. But I joined the Navy and left California, and I mean, I lived on a boat with people from all over, and I traveled over the world, and it wasn't too, I never was like a racist. A lot of people don't understand. I had a black skinhead, on the show one time, and he's like definitely not a racist. There's skinheads of all types and flavors, but yeah. So I had a past in that. Myself and Brian James, who founded the Vinlanders, and a number of other people, basically made an open renunciation of white nationalism and founded the Sons and Daughters of Liberty and the American Guard. And like white nationalists, they're kind of mad at us because we coined the terms. We basically talk. We basically repudiate what they're saying. And Brian, I think his quote was, in my younger years, I thought race was 90% of everything. Now I think it's maybe 10%. Right. It's not racist. There is issues. I interviewed people in South Africa. They're fixing to do the Zimbabwe deal in South Africa and take all the white people's land and confiscate it. And they literally said physical removal of all whites within 5 years, which I thought was funny. So then it's like people just want to like have, like, they can't really find any ideological way to like I pretty much agree with most any libertarian on any issue. So they got to dig around and try to like dig into your past and all that stuff, you know. So like Augustus renounces eugenics in June of 20, which he had done anyways, but he just made it public. Then in October they want to throw him out of the party for supporting eugenics. So it's like, well, here's the video from like 6 months ago. Like, you can't really do that, you know. And you know, I write for the Revolutionary Conservative. I'm an editor over there. Most of our articles are pretty much run of the mill. The only thing I think that's controversial is the opinion on mass Muslim immigration. I don't understand why it's controversial. You know, I feel like if you're 93% of the refugees and stuff are on welfare, and my thing is like, I don't think we're obligated to take in refugees. I think we should stop blowing up their countries, and there won't be any refugees.
Right.
Seems simple. And there's some cultural factors. I mean, they're throwing gay people off the roofs. They're just. I invited Will Coley down there to come and speak at a recent event we had, and then all the Muslims, I guess, are attacking him now because he's they're like, I guess he's the like, they're all mad at him for not supporting the edgier stuff that
Sharia law.
So yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Sharia just means like the way that they pray, but this gets into what I mean about message. Like, if you say Sharia law, people know that you mean these like patrols. Like, have you seen the street patrols in England and all over Europe?
Right. Yeah.
So you got like armed gangs that like go around and beat the shit out of you for having a beer and try to put a hood on your wife. That's just not cool with me, dude. That's not libertarianism. That is one of the bigger collectivist threats. And I have been saying that they need to have a renaissance, and that I did a show with like a world famous imam and stuff. I mean, I helped found a group of Muslim libertarians in New York. I put my money where my mouth is. I'm trying to basically have there's 1.6 billion or so, and about 1.1 billion believe in the hardline shit. So I need to get these other like 500 million to nail their criticisms to the door of the church, like Martin Luther, or of the mosque, and stand up and create a distinct entity. Because I don't care who you pray to. I don't care any of that stuff. But you know, if you're going to you know, come and kill all the gay people in our club in Orlando, you know, because Sharia or what, I mean, then I got a problem with that. And I got a problem with throwing gay people off the rooftops and misogyny and stoning rape victims and all these things. I think they're barbaric, and I speak out against them. And I guess it pisses some people off, but I don't really. I mean, it's hard for me to make sense of some of these people because, like, I'm sticking up for these like gay dudes that got killed, and then they want to make me into a racist it's just weird.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. I'm going to be honest, and I could offer you an apology too. So,
you're all right, dude.
Yeah,
it's cool. Listen, I'll tell anybody in the world this. Like, I'm 6'4", covered in tattoos. I'm intimidating a person if you don't know me. We got a guy. He's one of our open carriers. He's a Jacksonville sheriff, and he goes, "Man, if I didn't know him, I'd be scared of him, but he's fucking awesome." You know, I don't fault people for, you know, and that's part of why I really stuck up for Coley when he got all that heat for agreeing to debate Augustus. I said, all we need to do is get out, and that's why I appreciate you having me on. Like, we just need to get out and talk to each other and actually figure out what we do believe and actually what we're doing. I mean, everything that I do with my life is pro-libertarian stuff, you know. So
right.
I just don't understand the disconnect. Let's say you're a white nationalist. You can still be a libertarian, dude. Like, you want to. Okay, so Randy Weaver doesn't like black people, so he moves to the top of a mountain in Idaho. Do you have freedom to disassociate? If he's not harming another person or property or advocating legislation that would discriminate against somebody else, if he, you know, I mean, I don't understand why Brandy doesn't like mayonnaise on her sandwiches. I mean, am I gonna get all butthurt about it and call her an anti-sandwicher or something? You know what I mean? It's like, whatever, dude. Like, if you're like that, then don't hang out with them, I guess. You know?
Right.
What is it? How does it harm? It's a thought. How does it harm you? It doesn't even matter. It's just a way to like discredit people and talk shit when you don't have when you can't beat them in like an actual philosophical debate. In my opinion.
Right. Well, man,
unless you're actually like, I want to make black people segregated again.
Well, then we got to worry about it. That's the point. That's the point when nationalism does not line up with libertarianism, is when we start talking about the physical removal and shit like that, right? So,
well, I actually interviewed a guy from Chile on the show, and Chile, excuse me. But yeah, Pinochet was not that cool. I rarely make a helicopter joke, but I will make a helicopter joke. But like, I don't really, you know, wear the t-shirts and get too deep into that because I know the reality of all that stuff. Nationalism is the idea of a nation. Do we have a country or not? And the Germans are a distinct people. Americans are a distinct people, even though their American identity has more than one race. So when you say nationalism, it's really important to understand what you mean, because there are negative examples of nationalism in history. I mean, obviously your Hitlers and your Mussolinis and stuff, but I mean, Marcus Garvey was a black nationalist, and I think what he did was some of the greatest things that ever happened. Nationalism is just a matter of how your nation is constructed, whether it's good or bad. And our nation is built on the Bill of Rights, which I think is pretty good, especially compared to anything else we got. So, when I say, there's people, they literally, they say they want to eliminate the nation state, and they're, I assume if an end goal for you, but what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to go do it tomorrow? How are you going to do it anyways? That's what I think is so funny. We have you're not going to get the power to do any of these things anyways, unless you listen to me. Right? Not you personally, but I mean, the general anarchist, crowd. They don't seem to understand that we have a really long bridge to cross to get to anarchy, and it's going to have to go through minarchy, and that's the whole Dallas Accord thing. Stop talking crazy stuff that freaks out the population. You've got to. Saul Alinsky was the genius on this stuff, man, and I think everybody should read Rules for Radicals and Revolution for Radicals if you're going to be in the Libertarian Party, because he'll tell you he's never talk to people in language they don't understand. We'd rather talk to him about our views on the drug war and the interventionist stuff. We sound like fucking idiots to the average American. So that's why I found the Veterans Caucus, so we can bring that message in a palatable form. That's why I write about I have a series based on, which is Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals. It sounds counterintuitive, Rules for Libertarians. But basically what I do is I explain on how we need to fix our messaging, because we are right. There's no reason we should not be a quarter of the congressional seats. The only reason is we're at that stage that Lenin was at the turn of the century, where we're all bickering over who's going to have the biggest unit, and we need to get over that, and we need to make a pragmatic plan of action, and we need to get people in office so that they can affect these changes. And the more power we get, the more radical we can get, or whatever with our agenda. But I face this. I'll give you a great example. Open carry. We found that we had legislators that will introduce the bill, but they wanted it to be for permit holders. Like if you had a concealed weapons permit, you can open carry. People go, well, the Constitution's my carry permit. You guys are sellouts. It's I've already been through this, and those people are still sitting at home bitching on their computer after we've done past dozens of laws, and we won lawsuits against the University of North Florida and Orlando City and all this stuff. And they're just, it's a cop out, man. They just don't want to do the work, or inept. And so it makes them feel better to try to demean other people. But I was if you get pulled over, you can't tell the highway patrol, oh, the cops are going to jail, buddy. If you're concealed carrying a weapon. And a concealed, I actually compiled these statistics and brought them to the Senate, and everybody's using them now. A law enforcement officer in Florida is 22 and a half times more likely than a concealed weapons permit holder to commit a crime worthy of taking your gun rights away.
Right.
So we're how can you argue with that? We should let permit holders carry their guns open because we're letting cops do it, and they're far more dangerous. Simple argument that we can win. And then when we get that, then the next step is constitutional carry. And you know what I mean? But we're going to walk these people are at the starting thing of Monopoly, and they want to be on the finish. But you got to go through Park Place, and
right.
You got to go around Broadway. Yeah, walk towards your goal, make concrete, steps to get towards your goal. When you go around there saying legalize heroin and you're you like the American flag, you're a bootlicker, fuck you. Okay, well now we're not going to go anywhere. Right. Period. You can think that, but shut up. You know what I mean? It's like going to a job interview. You don't tell everybody, about the things in your life that, you don't go to, hey, I snort cocaine on Friday nights, right? I mean, not that you shouldn't be able to, or not that I care, but time and place for everything. And so I think that as far as the party goes, that's the big bridge that we got to cross, is we've got to start using political science instead of philosophy. We're a book club, and we need to become a political party.
Right. Well, man, it's been great talking with you. I really think this was a great interview. I think it's going to clear up some stuff for you, at least out here, and maybe with some of the viewers that wouldn't normally get to watch a show or read your literature. And I really appreciate you coming on with me. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything that you got coming up? Any articles you're publishing or shows or anything?
Yeah, I mean, you can, libertarianheathen.com, and then you can catch my broadcasts on Mad American Network, Global Dissident Voices. Most libertarians would really love my show. I mean, like I said, I've been interviewed, a co-founder of the Cuban Libertarian Party. Did an interview with an anarcho-capitalist activist in Venezuela. I've got Students for Liberty chair of Uganda coming up next week. He couldn't get a good internet signal, so they took a collection to get an internet line so he can come on the show. But basically, what we're doing is we're not just talking about the story. So assist in forming a regional libertarian party in East Africa with some guys in Tanzania and Kenya and this guy in Uganda. But man, we have some great conversations, and to know that there's someone in every country in the world that thinks just like you is a powerful thing. That's the paleo kind of libertarianism that Rothbard was into at the end of his life that I kind of followed too. Is like you could have a different culture, you could have a different race, but at the end of the day, you fight in your country on the issues that are important to your people and do what you got to do, and to support each other in that is important. So go check that out. I think you'll find a lot of good talks there, and all that stuff is archived on the libertarianheathen.com.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. We appreciate you coming on. You guys make sure you check out our website at thinkliberty.co, and we'll talk to you later, Ryan.
Appreciate it, man.